child which Cleopatra fathered upon Caesar was not his. Helvius Cinna, tribune of the people, admitted to several persons the fact that he had a bill ready drawn, which Caesar had ordered him to get enacted in his absence, allowing him, with the hope of leaving issue, to take any wife he chose, and as many of them as he pleased, and to leave no room for doubt of his infamous character for unnatural lewdness and adultery. Curio the father says in one of his speeches, "He was every woman's man, and every man's woman." It is acknowledged even by his enemies that in regard to wine he was abstemious. A remark is ascribed to Marcus Cato, that Caesar was the only sober man amongst all those who were engaged in the design to subvert the government. In the matter of diet, Caius Oppius informs us that he was so indifferent that when a person in whose house he was entertained had served him with stale instead of fresh oil, and the rest of the company would not touch it, he alone ate very heartily of it, that he might not seem to tax the master of the house with rusticity or want of attention. But his abstinence did not extend to pecuniary advantages, either in his military commands or civil offices, for we have the testimony of some writers that he took money from the proconsul who was his predecessor in Spain, and from the Roman allies in that quarter, for the discharge of his debts, and plundered at the point of the sword some towns of the Lusitanians, notwithstanding they attempted no resistance, and opened their gates to him upon his arrival before them. In Gaul he rifled the chapels and temples of the gods, which were filled with rich offerings, and demolished cities oftener for the sake of their spoil than for any ill they had done. By this means gold became so plentiful with him that he exchanged it through Italy and the provinces of the empire for 3,000 sesterces the pound. In his first consulship he purloined from the capital 3,000 pounds weight of gold, and substituted for it the same quantity of gilt brass. He bartered likewise to foreign nations and princes for gold the titles of allies and kings, and squeezed out of Ptolemy alone near 6,000 talents in the name of himself and Pompey. He afterwards supported the expense of the civil wars and of his triumphs and public spectacles by the most flagrant rapine and sacrilege. In eloquence and warlike achievements he equalled, at least, if he did not surpass, the greatest of men. After his prosecution of Dolabella, he was indisputably reckoned one of the most distinguished advocates. Cicero, in recounting to Brutus the famous orators, declares that he does not see that Caesar was inferior to any one of them, and says that he had an elegant, splendid, noble, and magnificent vein of eloquence, and in a letter to Cornelius Nepos he writes of him in the following terms: "What, of all the orators who, during the whole course of their lives, have done nothing else, which can you prefer to him? Which of them is more pointed or terse in his periods, or employs more polished and elegant language?" In his youth he seems to have chosen Strabo Caesar for his model, from whose oration in behalf of the Sardinians he has transcribed some passages literally into his divination. In his delivery he is said to have had a shrill voice, and his action was animated, but not ungraceful. He has left behind him some speeches, among which are ranked a few that are not genuine, such as that on behalf of Quintus Metellus. These Augustus supposes, with reason, to be rather the production of blundering shorthand writers who were not able to keep pace with him in the delivery, than publications of his own, for I find in some copies that the title is not For Metellus, but What he wrote to Metellus, whereas the speech is delivered in the name of Caesar, vindicating Metellus and himself from the aspersions cast upon them by their common defamers. The speech addressed to his soldiers in Spain, Augustus considers likewise as spurious. We meet with two under this title, one made, as is pretended, in the first battle, and the other in the last, at which time Asinius Pollio says he had not leisure to address the soldiers on account of the suddenness of the enemy's attack. End of Julius Caesar, Part 3. Recording by Graham Redman.